Hello there. Should yesterday's result be replicated in a future general election, both Labour and the Tories will be in a world of hurt. Nigel Farage's Reform UK pulled a real rabbit out of the hat yesterday. Coming from nowhere, they took the council seat of Marton in a Blackpool by-election caused by the resignation of Labour councillor Sarah Smith on her election to Parliament. This will have the main parties sitting up and paying attention because this was not meant to happen. The Reform UK candidate, Jim O'Neill, secured the seat with 462 votes, 38.7% of the vote, and well ahead of the Labour candidate Samira Benson in second place, who achieved 334 votes, 27.9% of the vote. With the Tories in third place with 254 votes, 21.3% of the vote. Admittedly, the turnout was only 23.12%, but it's still a notable gain. And it will encourage more Reform UK candidates to join the political fray at the local level. Something that will spur on Nigel Farage to fill the over 2,000 candidate spaces to contest the local elections across the country in May 2025. And if they can go from 5% in Marton in 2023 to winning with nearly 40% of the vote just 18 or so months later, then anything is possible. Interestingly, there is another Blackpool Council by-election coming up in Bispham on Thursday the 7th of November. There are 2 seats in Bispham, both won by Tories in 2023. One of them, Tony Warner, has resigned to take up the chair of the Greater Manchester Mental Health NHS Trust. Can Reform UK successfully take on the Tories in this ward and win another seat? Now, if Reform are able to find and field a good candidate, they may well be in the running. But the Tories will now be very alert to the Reform UK threat given yesterday's by-election result. Now, I'm picking up clear vibes that the electorate has basically given up on the usual 4 Lib Lab Green Con parties and are looking either for something new or to sit back and see what happens. Especially as it gets clearer by the day that these parties are all essentially the same. As amply demonstrated by their Chagos Islands saga playing out before our eyes. Yes, it may have been Labour's Foreign Secretary David Lammy that reached the agreement to hand the Chagos Islands, known as the British Indian Ocean Territory, over to Mauritius, which is over 1,200 miles from Chagos, but it was the Tories who set the ball running years ago on this project. Yes, the same Tories that are today lambasting Keir Starmer for letting the islands go on such weak grounds, seemingly just to rid themselves of the responsibility. Even though Chagos Islanders living in the UK say they feel betrayed. And no, we are not returning Chagos to Mauritius, because Mauritius never owned it in the first place. So it would have happened even had the Tories magically been able to retain their grasp on power because they started the whole process. And it would be Labour moaning about them right now if they were still in power. And now we hear that the Lib Dem leader Ed Davey is not averse to the idea of relinquishing control over this strategic geopolitical asset either. They are all the same, all set upon not just full nut zero and open borders policies, but also, it seems, to the full decolonisation of the UK. Because I'm personally convinced that one of the drivers for David Lammy gleefully getting this Chagos plan over the line was the decolonisation of the UK. And yes, we should all be very worried about the Falklands and Gibraltar going forwards. Especially when the best that Number 10 could do, when asked about the future of those 2 British overseas territories, was to say, Chagos does not change our policy or approach to other overseas territories. That does not sound like an emphatic "we will never let them down" statement. Sounds very cagey and guarded to me. But it's not just Gibraltar and the Falklands. Remember, we have another strategic overseas territory in the form of Ascension Island in the Atlantic, our staging post for the Falklands War. As the Journal of Military and Strategic Studies says, Ascension Island served as an absolutely essential cross-deck and restow area as troops prepared to set off for landing operations at San Carlos. It was also where the Vulcan and Victor bomber raid on the Falklands runway, called Operation Black Buck, was launched from. And Ascension forms part of the St Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha Islands spread over 2,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. It also includes one island called the Inaccessible Island. Now, no one else, as far as I can see, lays claims to these islands. But the closest African country to Ascension appears to be Liberia, only 1,000 miles to the northeast, so it's closer to Ascension than Mauritius is to Chagos. So if the Liberian government gets its ducks in a row and slaps a claim in with the UK Foreign Office, they could be getting an offer of it by the end of next week, and Lammy would probably offer to pay them a lot of dosh to take it off our hands. Oh, and also bear in mind, the UK attempted to increase the Ascension Economic Exclusion Zone back in 2010 because of how far the continental shelf extended from the island. And why? To get at more oil and minerals, that's why. But the United Nations vetoed that extension. But if another country owned them, I bet the UN would reconsider any such claim by them. So it might be in someone's benefit to wrest control of Ascension from the UK. Anyway, Lammy's decolonisation efforts in Chagos have had the repercussions of setting off worries in the Falklands and Gibraltar. The people who live there will be concerned about the offhand manner in which the UK just gave that territory away. It will also have given much hope to the governments and people of both Spain and Argentina that cracks may have started and that they can profit handsomely from this. And now oil rears its ugly head again, because the company Rockhopper still maintains there is a lot to be drilled for around the Falklands, and the people and government of the islands said very recently that they want a piece of that action. But the UK will not help them. You know, net zero and all that. Another reason for Labour to jettison the Falklands, no doubt. But the Falklands government has the power to go ahead with drilling anyway. And now that the UK has given Mauritius money to take Chagos off our hands, the Argentine government has vowed to take full sovereignty of the Falkland Islands away from the UK using concrete means. And what worries me is that our Labour government would not lift a finger were there to be a repeat of 1982. They would merely lodge a complaint with the UN and then wash their hands of the whole problem. The UN then would put the file at the back of the drawer marked "to be done by the 23rd century" and ask Lammy when Gibraltar will be ceded to the Spanish. Oh, and don't forget Northern Ireland either. Part of the decolonisation process will be to break up the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Nothing signifies our colonial past to the woke wet left more than the mere existence of the UK as a country. And David Lammy has already been over to the Republic of Ireland talking about a reset with them. Don't trust Labour. They are going to dismantle this country and everything it stands for.